Hi,
Hello.
how are you? Right on time.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I was hoping that we'd have some of the Finance Committee members joining us. We have Chief McCauley about to sign in, Vice Mayor. We do have a quorum. I do believe that we may not have Council Member Diana Hawkins-Manwellian. She's out of town right now. She may be trying to call in. She doesn't have good internet connection. She let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting of the joint study session with the City Council and the Finance Committee of the Town of Atherton for April 7th at 4 p.m. Anthony, can we do a roll call, please?
We can. Councilmember DeGolia,
Yes.
Councilmember Widmer.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Lempress,
Yes, I'm here.
and Mayor Lewis.
I'm here.
And
Any
I'll-
members of the Finance Committee?
I don't see any on, so I'll note that in the minutes, and then I'll note that Councilmember Hawkins is not present currently, but if she
She's
does,
excused at this point. Yes. Okay, thank you. So we'll open the floor to any members of the public, which I do not see any members of the public who might wish to speak at this time. Anthony, do we have any members of the public that have submitted written requests or messages?
none, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll go on to item number 3, which is our proclamation for our dispatchers. And this is really a wonderful proclamation that we make every year. We have 5 full-time dispatchers in our communications department and 3 to 5 per diem part-time dispatchers. And without them, our police services really would not work. So if you'll just bear with me, I will read the proclamation because I think it was very well put together. And I didn't do it, okay? I get to sign it, but I didn't write it, so thank you. This is in recognition of Atherton's public safety communications personnel, whereas the City Council of the Town of Atherton, along with the entire community, would like to honor the contributions of all communications personnel in the public safety arena for their continued efforts to preserve public safety through our 911 non-emergency lines and dispatch of our police personnel to thousands of calls for services each year across the nation. And whereas each year, the second week of April is dedicated to the men and women who serve as public safety telecommunicators. It was first conceived by Patricia Anderson of the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office in 1981 and was observed only at that agency for 3 years. Members of the Virginia and North Carolina chapters of the Association of Public Safety Communications Office Officials, the APC 1990s, the National APCO organization convinced Congress of the need for a formal proclamation. Representative Edward J. Markey introduced what became HJ Resolution 284 to create National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week. According to congressional procedure, it was introduced twice more in 1993 and in 1994, and then became permanent without the need for yearly introduction. And whereas the City Council of the Town of Atherton would like to declare National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 11th through 17th, 2021, which has been set aside so everyone can be made aware of their hard work and dedication, which provides a vital link to the public safety services on which we have come to rely every day of the year. And whereas the City Council of the Town of Atherton wish to thank them for all the sacrifices they make to create a better and safer world for the public. Their commitment to the profession is appreciated by the public safety communications community and the citizens we serve. And now therefore, as mayor of the town of Atherton, and on behalf of the Atherton City Council, I hereby commend the outstanding service performed by our communications personnel. In witness whereof, I have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the town of Atherton to be affixed this 17th day of March, 2021. Actually, 7th day of April, 2021.
We'll get that. We'll get that. We do have Miss Cisco on the line from the police department.
Oh,
to-
please, I hope you could say a few words.
Good morning. Thank you for having me swing in here. Just on behalf of the dispatch team, I'd like to thank you, the chief, as well as the town and council for taking the time to recognize the job that we do. We strive each day to just provide excellent service for our residents and customers that call in, no matter what kind of call they have. And we are just so happy to be able to be a part of the Atherton Police Department, the town, and we really do take pride in the job that we do. So thank you very much for recognizing us.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for all your hard work and all of your colleagues. And we couldn't function without you. So we know how hard and stressful it is, and we depend upon your professionalism and your calmness in the face of distress and anxiety. And so we thank you very much. Does any other member of the council wish to make a comment on this?
I'll say something.
Yes, Councilmember Whitmer.
Yeah, dispatch, we have to recognize dispatch for many of our residents is the face of the police department. They people call, these guys calm people down, and then they said, we'll take care of it. And they send people out. People sometimes, PD in the field don't go see these people. So these guys really represent Atherton, and for many of our residents, this is the only face of Atherton that they see, or voice of Atherton that they feel. So it's important that we do recognize them, and they do a terrific job. So thank you very much for letting me make a comment.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you again. So we will go on to our next item on the agenda, item number 4, which is our fiscal year 2021-22 general fund operations budget report. And I'm going to hand it off to our city manager to then give a high level overview, and then to our finance director, Robert Barone III, to answer any questions we may have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you mentioned, this is a review of the town's general fund operational budget only. The capital projects and special project funds, as you know, come at a different study session. I think it's the May study session. So those aren't being looked at this time. So the fiscal year 21-22 budget does reflect a very positive outlook, despite the potential short-term, long-term impacts of COVID-19. The town's weathering those impacts pretty well. We're experiencing a recovery period with the resumed ramp up of residential construction and the completion pending of the town center project. There are potentially some longer term impacts that we realized in the park rental operations. They're expected to recover over the next 18 months or less. Losses, though, from park rentals don't represent a significant major revenue loss to the town. So that's good. That represents only a couple $100,000 out of our budget. At the conclusion of fiscal year 2021, staff anticipates that our general fund is going to show a net positive change of about 4.3 million. That's inclusive of a larger than normal ERAF revenue for the year at about 1.8. We project an increase in revenues of approximately 715,000 for a total revenue projection of about 17.6. A major part of the increase is due to the sale of the Rule 28 funds. As you know, we received in this fiscal year about 642,000 from South San Francisco for the sale of our Rule 28 credits. These were deposited directly into the general fund as unrestricted revenue. So all in, at the end of fiscal year 2021, the current fiscal year, we expect a fund balance of about 14.6 million. That excludes reserves. Reserves are on top of that. Then revenue over expenditures all in at the end of 21-22, the next fiscal year, completing the town center, we expect a fund balance of about 9.2 million, and that excludes reserves. Reserves are on top of that. So that's fairly healthy. It's just a note that if we had not received, and I'll get into this in a little bit, if we had not received a larger than normal ERAF, and if we were projecting still the 0 ERAF or the much lower ERAF in the next fiscal year, and the $1.3 million of the American Rescue Plan wasn't going to be deposited to the town, we would be upside down by about $800,000 out of our reserves. So reserves would be on top of that, but we would have an upside down balance there. I see a question already from Councilmember DeGolia.
Yeah, before you, I'm just looking at the staff report and listening to your report, and this is the section before the COVID-19 impact.
Right.
And I have a question. So this said that we had a net positive change of 4.3 million, like you said, and that a large part of that was the 642,000 from the sale of the Rule 20A funds, which I recognize, but 642,000 is a relatively small part of 4.3 million. It looked like there was another $3 million increase in addition to the 715 and the 642. So,
Well,
what?
as you know, we received another, I'd say it's $500,000 more in ERAF than we anticipated. ERAF budgeted was about 1.3. We got about 1.8 in that fiscal year as well. And then I'm scrolling down in the staff report to see where the other increases were.
Yeah, because that okay, so that still leaves $2.5 million. Did we
Right.
just project
Yes.
$2.5 million less than we received?
No, we spend less than we receive in revenue. So we budgeted about 16.8, and we actually received about 17.6. So the bulk of that, again, was the excess ERAF that we received more than, oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute, that was down below the line, right?
Property tax, correct.
Yeah,
It-
but,
it-
but that
it's,
wouldn't have
um,
included the 20A funds. So that would have, the 20A funds would have been responsible for that change, but
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
So,
Go ahead, Robert.
correct.
so we budgeted that we would, so what you're saying is that we budgeted that we'd have a positive change in the $3 million range. Yeah, so is that accurate, Robert? Yeah, so
Correct. Before ERAF, we'd have about 2.5. And then you add the ERAF, that'll get us up to be close to the 4.
but that was our
million.
budget. So actually we came in a little above our budget because and that's why the 20A funds were material, because that pushed us above what we had projected.
That's correct.
Okay,
Correct.
great. I understand that. Okay.
All right, let's see, give me a second to scroll back up here in my notes. So the COVID impact, as I noted, was to park events. So, we anticipate that the private sector is going to translate to some reduction in goods and services that are going to drive other communities to have some losses in sales tax, occupancy tax, gas tax, and other revenues that may be local to their jurisdictions. We don't have that. Our primary revenue source is property tax. So, as you know, properties have continued to rise, even though the assessor's annual assessment of the 2% isn't going to come in. It's going to be a little over 1%. We are still going to experience a growth in property tax because of our property values and the sales of properties in town. But we do continue to track all COVID-related expenditures. We've had a number of them over the past few months, and we're going to continue to have that. And the American Rescue Plan does provide the town with a $1.3 million revenue. And we'll get half of that probably in May or June of this year, and the other half a year later. And we have about 2 years or so to spend it through December 31st, 2024. So we'll continue to track expenditures related to COVID, everything from, staff related expenditures to facility expenditures to revenue loss. See, these funds will augment our current operational expenses, but they can also serve to relieve other unexpected costs. One of the new costs that are being put into this budget are the new town center impacts. Overall, these needs are going to be related to maintenance and monitoring of the new building's systems, landscaping costs, custodial services, and utility costs. Some of these costs are going to be split between the town and the library. And as you know, we're going to try and manage those costs so that we can push as much over to the library operations expenses as are reasonable. So that includes landscape costs, that includes utility costs, that includes staffing costs related to maintaining those facilities. One of the major costs that we're looking at adding to the budget is the maintenance and monitoring costs. These buildings have new systems that we currently do not have the expertise, either via consultants or on staff, to manage and monitor. So we're suggesting that for the first year, we hire a consultant to come in and assist us with those facilities as needed. That's going to be a bid item, an RFP, but we anticipate the operations budget impact will be about $75K. This is a cost that's shared with the library. Total cost about 106. The library share is 31,000 of that 106. The other additional, yes, ma'am.
So, excuse me for interrupting. With these additional operational costs for the new town center, I know that it's larger than what we, have now and everything like that. But are there not some savings that we will see because of energy efficiencies in any of these? Has that been taken into account with these additional costs?
The energy issues are related in the utility costs down below. So that's not the maintenance and monitoring component of it, but the utility costs are estimated to be larger than we experience today.
Of course, because it's a larger building.
A larger building, exactly. And so the architect did an analysis of the energy cost needs for the facility and pegged it at around 96,000. And then we had an analysis done by, it was a third-party consultant when we were looking at the solar for the building that did a separate analysis, the energy cost for the building, and staff pegged those costs somewhere in between those two estimates. And that's what's included in the budget for utility costs.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The other addition that we're looking at is for landscape maintenance services. MCE currently manages the landscaping in the park. The town center is a whole new ballgame. It's all new systems plus a lot of sustainable systems, including the retention basins within the facility and the green garden that's in there. Not the green garden, it's the drought tolerant garden that's in there. So it's going to require, just by its own design, a higher level of maintenance. So staff is suggesting that we go out to bid for landscape maintenance services and roll in the park services as well. So we'd have one vendor doing the town center and the park for landscape maintenance services. MCE would continue to do the park facilities, but we'd have a single landscape contractor doing both of the town's landscaped areas.
That makes sense to me.
That impact is approximately $80,000. Again, that's split between the town and the library. Overall cost is about 107, but the library budget's future budget. The next one is the custodial services. This is, as you pointed out, Madam Mayor, this is a bigger building. More of a facility means more to clean. So we'd have to put this out to bid as well. The overall cost is about a $200,000 number, but the cost increase on the town's operations side is only about $27,000. Then the utility costs, that's where we're showing an increase of about $22,000 for utility costs for the new building. And again, these are all numbers that are either dependent on bid or going to be based on experience over the next year. We just don't exactly know where they're going to come in at. Those are the ones that are associated with the new building. Other significant budget adjustments are related to departmental expenses. The one you're aware of in the administration budget is the sustainability coordinator consultant position. This is going to go out to an RFP that's on your agenda for April 21st. And we're hoping to get a consultant to come in at about half-time. So the $70,000 estimate that's in the budget is approximately 50% of what a cost would be for a full-time employee to do that based on surveys of other agencies for similar positions. This is being moved into the administration budget, taken out of the planning budget. And so Anthony and I will be the ones that are responsible for the Environmental Programs Committee, as well as a Sustainability Coordinator role. Moving on to other large adjustments within the police department budget, there's the CPI adjustment. That's the 2% related to the APOA contract. Another few adjustments within the police department are those new positions that we talked about a couple of months ago. The actual only new position is the hybrid code enforcement / dispatcher position. That's about $100,000 in cost. Then there is the reclassification of the lead dispatcher into the dispatcher supervisor. That's about 21,000. Special assignment as the motorcycle sergeant. That's about 7,700. And then the overhire of the police officer academy, which is about 26,000 as a one-time cost in fiscal year 21-22. Next, within the PD budget is the pension UAL. That increases about 161,000 for the unfunded actuarial liability for CalPERS. And then there's a retiree / active healthcare cost increase of about 153,000. This is a pay-as-you-go cost. This is part related to OPEB and the retirees.
Can I ask you a quick question, George? And I'm sorry I didn't ask it yesterday. So at the last meeting, we talked about, and even in the Athertonian, there's an article that you put in, or the chief put in, about the encryption of the communications gear and things like that. So when we do the CIP, I assume that we will be seeing those costs come in for that new equipment.
There is some equipment costs within the operations budget, but if it's a large scale cost, yes, it would be within the capital improvement if it's facility related.
Do we know about how much that's going to be, or I guess we'll find out next month, huh?
You will find out next month, but I think the chief put together a swag of those costs because the new building is being built with those facilities in communication, part of the dispatch center. So that's kind of built into that cost. But the radio equipment will be transitioned over time. So there was a radio equipment purchase. That's part of the equipment replacement that he itemized. Chief, do you have that number off the top of your head?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we've already implemented plans to incrementally purchase the equipment that we'll need for the patrol cars and for portable radios. And then the costs are already included. I believe we came to council a couple months ago with the cost that the vendor estimated to put into place now at the new building. And then we plan to with the other agencies in the county to coordinate this to switch over in 2023.
Okay, so when you present the cost, the capital cost for doing, obviously the dispatch, which is the first item that you told us about, that you said we were going to do first. Can we see the whole multi-year cost, but then we focus on only the one, so we know how much this whole thing costs? Okay.
No, we'll make that.
No, absolutely. I'll do that workup for you, and I'll send it to George.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And those are all, you have the written staff report before you. Those are all the major fiscal changes within the budget, the normal ones to be expected, the CalPERS cost, the net normal cost, and other things like that. But those are all the big ticket ones that I'm calling to the council's attention with respect to the budget. Staff does have a PowerPoint presentation that.
City manager,
Yes, ma'am.
I think I would really like for you to just draw our attention to the cost savings due to CalPERS cost sharing for all departments and the savings of $123,000.
Yes. So
that sounds good that, you figured that out. And Robert,
Yeah, exactly. That is actually related to the town's pension costs that we pay, the rate that the town pays.
Mm-hmm.
The local miscellaneous employees pick up an additional 1% beyond the employee rate, and public safety picks up 3% beyond that. And that represents a savings to the town of $123,000 in the current pending fiscal year.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's good.
And that
A couple questions.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, two questions. One was under the shared benefit rates, staff increased the police department budget percentage to 3% from 2%. And I'd like to understand why that change occurred. And secondly, it just jumped out at me that the retiree and active healthcare increase of $153,000. I understand we've had some new retirees this year, but that just seemed like a large increase, $153,000.
Sure. So the benefit adjustments on employee benefits, the 1.5% to 2% for the miscellaneous and the increase in the PD. So we have what's called an internal services fund, and we take all of the ARC payment for OPEB, the pension UAL and all that, and consolidate it into a single fund. And so each department is charged their fair share of that fund based on the salaries within that department. So that accounts for accrued leaves, vacations, sick, holiday, anything else that we have to keep on the books. So we charge each department a percentage based on what the need is within that fund, based on what those rates are for that particular department. So as employees get merit adjustments over time, or there's an increase in healthcare costs, or OPEB costs go up or down for the ARC in any given year, Robert then does a calculation to go back to the department based on salaries and figures out what percentage he needs to charge that department for their share of those costs or accrued costs. And we have to keep them on the books because they're part of the audit. And we need to make sure that we continually maintain an appropriate amount of money set aside for the accrued benefits primarily.
That makes sense to me. But John, and I understand as, salaries and fixed costs increase that there or decrease, I suppose. But whatever the change is, that there's going to be an impact on that. That's a benefits allocation.
Mm-hmm.
What jumped out at me though was I doubt that the salaries have increased by 50%, and the allocation increased from 2% to 3%, which is a 50% increase in that allocation. So that's a big change.
Robert, was there a specific area that needed additional funding?
Well, particularly just in the police department, the initial allocation was 2% of budgeted salaries. We increased it to 3%, and that increase is only $45,000 increase to the budget expense for the shared benefit. Again, that's just for the allocation for the vacation accruals, comp time on the employee benefit side. The rest of the departments, the only change was it was from 1.5% to 2%, and again that increase was only $8,693. So the total increase is $54,000, but majority of our staffing level is within the police department. So that's why the increase went from 2% to 3% for the shared benefit rate.
There was, I guess what he's saying is there was no particular item within there that triggered that adjustment. It was just an overtime issue. Correct. So explain the 153, Robert, for retiree and active healthcare increase.
Yeah, the 153, there was, we have 2 retirees that will be full into the 21-22 budget. So that's we're planning for that. And then also that amount had increased, that's a portion of the 153. And then the current retiree active also, the current, the retiree active is what includes part of the new retirees entering for the police department. And then there's the second component is the OPEB, the ARC component, which in the staff report, it was about $182,000 for a total increment to all the departments. And again, because PD has the majority of the retiree health component, that was allocated towards the police department. So again, majority of that is we have full retirees benefits of the police department getting 100% of the town's contribution
Okay.
for retiree health.
So I have a question, Robert and George. How many more legacy staff members do we have, employees that do we have? Because I think over time, this will decline, and as our new hires under the new formula come up.
You are correct. I think we've flipped. We have more OPEB, more PEPRA than legacy. Is that correct, Robert?
Correct. We used to be probably 70% classic. Now we're about 45 classic, and then the rest is PEPRA. And Mayor's correct. As we move transition from the legacy to the new members, the retiree health benefit, we changed that several years ago, where the minimum amount for new members is just the minimum PEMCA amount, and currently that's $143 towards retiree health.
So this number will get better over time.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions for Robert at this time?
So if we can go into Robert's presentation, we can put that up and go slide by slide if you want. There's only a few slides in it, really.
PowerPoint?
PowerPoint. If
I
you
thought it was about 45 pages. Was it about 45 pages?
I think it's only 20.
I think it's 20. It's 25. It's about 22.
There's some nice pictures in it.
There was some,
It's the pleasure of the council.
No, I think it's, I'm okay. I've gone through it pretty detailed, and I spent a fair amount of time with George on it.
Yeah.
I did have a suggestion that I would like to make, though.
Certainly.
In reading this, I think that there should be a time, perhaps sometime next year, that we consider, since we're saying that we're going to pay off the loan, that's what our plan is at the call date, that it might be prudent for us to consider, just as we go through the ERAF and everything like that and reallocate it, any additional monies that we would have, that we would allocate that to, a sinking fund in a restricted fund area, so that we would have the money to pay off that loan, as opposed to in that year saying, oh, where are we going to come up with $4.5 million? I think that might be too tough a nut to swallow. And so if we did it incrementally, it won't hurt so much, and it won't cause people to think about, well, maybe let's just extend it.
Okay. You say you create a sinking fund, or are you actually saying use a dollar number, say if it's the next 5 years, divided by 4.4 million, or 4.4 million divided by 5 years, you'd maybe set aside or actually pay down additional 900. It's like an accelerated mortgage payment, right?
Yeah.
Interest, and then you pay another 900,000.
Right. Well, your suggestion where we figure it out now and we know what we're going to do it, so we can budget it. That's a better idea than just saying, hey, we're just going to put money in as we have it available. Mm-hmm. We want to make it as painless as possible, not only for us, but for the future councils. So, so your suggestion.
Downside of that? What would be the downside of that? We wouldn't be obligated in a future year if we didn't have that additional money, right?
No, we wouldn't be obligated to, but I think that, we've kind of all said that we want to pay that down. It makes good sense that we've never been in debt before, and now we're in debt on this, and we're in debt also to the county for 1.35 million. So we want to get out of that as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about the county.
Yeah, we said that was what our objective was, and that we wanted we paid extra for having that 5-year call. Not much, but the cost was extra.
I can make a suggestion along those lines.
Okay.
The council can create a special fund And if you want to term it as a restricted fund specifically for the repayment of the debt. And then each year, Robert can take the debt service and actually put it in that fund and use that to pay the annual debt service. But we could also allocate a certain amount of additional money, like the 4-point-something million divided up by 5 years, into that fund. And you could call it a restricted fund. And then if you don't put anything into it, you don't. But if we do each year and budget for it, it has the public perception of being restricted for that particular debt service payment.
I think it's a great idea, George.
Yeah. Could it be put into it like a savings account where we could get, 0.01% interest or 1% interest or something? I mean, but it is, it's there because I don't think we're going to get a benefit from our loan covenant by adding money to our debt service, our, 800,000, right?
It's not adding money to the debt
No.
service, it's just setting money aside.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So that
Correct.
We have funds. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's an intelligent idea.
I want to see it happen.
All right, we can bring that back because it takes the council to create that special fund. So we'll bring that back.
All right, great.
It does, related questions. I have a couple of related questions. So when I went through this, and I agree with Bill that we don't, notwithstanding wanting to give Robert the opportunity to run through his slides, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I don't either. I read them, never read.
But when I look at this, and correct me if I'm wrong, it actually looks to me like, given the amount of ending fund balance in excess of reserves, that we actually could have gotten away with not doing the COP. There's sufficient funds to have covered the entire principal amount of the COP. Now, not by a lot. We end up with the projected remaining unallocated fund balance of $7.3 million. The COP was 6.87, so we would have had $500,000 of excess, which is pretty close.
Yeah.
But that also assumes that we're using all of the contingencies, which now we know is extremely unlikely we're going to use. So it looks to me like we're in extremely good shape and that we actually could have gotten away without doing the COP.
I agree with that. I agree.
I talked with the city manager about that just today and said that
That's my comment. And then my question is, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to confirm, is that we can't pay down any piece of the COP prior to the 5 years. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so on your other point, the mayor and I talked about it, as well as Councilmember Widmer and I think touched on it. There were a lot of unknowns back when we were doing the COP. We did not know what our cash flow exactly was going to be. We didn't know what our ERAF was going to come in for the current year, nor did we know what the projection was for the next year. And the county was telling us, don't count on ERAF. It's not going to be there. So that's the $1.1 million add that we put back in the budget that contributes to that $9.6 million number. So that was new information this current fiscal year. Also, we've added in the $1.3 million America Recovery Plan, America Rescue Plan. So that's $2.4 million added to that 9.6 number that's in there. And then we also rolled through the 642,000 from the Rule 28 credit that we sold. And we got a higher than normal ERAF in the year prior. So there's a lot of things that worked out for us, but if they hadn't, we could have been in a...
I'm not questioning the judgment in making that statement. I'm just observing that based on the reality, we could have avoided it.
Right.
Good observation, Councilmember DeGolia. Appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else want to make a comment? Councilmember Vice Mayor Lempres, are you still there? Hi.
I'm still here. And I'm not making a comment, but I've been listening, and the comments thus far have been, right on point.
Good.
So I'm good.
Good. I just want to make sure you weren't being overlooked or anything like that. Okay. So unfortunately, we are not going to see the PowerPoint presentation, but I am keeping it close at hand because I just love to read it. Look at the pictures. Thank you very
If you
much.
can't sleep, go ahead and read it. It'll put you to sleep at night.
Maybe they'll understand it all.
Yeah.
Well, after going through this, it really made me feel good, even with all of the increases across the board, and there were some decreases and things, but it just felt like, gosh, it's going to bring tears to my eyes that Atherton is being run very, very professionally right now. I mean, we're looking at real professional services and a sustainability coordinator, and it's like we're kind of coming up into we got a new town center that is not the old 1950s building, and it's just like we're really clicking on all cylinders. And I really want to commend our city manager and our finance director and our city clerk and our public works director and our chief for the police department operations. Very, very well respected. And, Atherton's a really wonderful place to be. And I'm very proud to be part of it. So thank you all.
Thank you. It's
Okay.
a great job.
All right. So we have one more agenda item. It's that.
Wait, before
sorry.
we leave this agenda item, I'd like to ask another question.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
So we haven't discussed the ERAF projection, but we're projecting $1.1 million, which absolutely fits into our game plan over the last 5 years of under projecting. Except I think 1 year. And I wonder why we're choosing 1.1 million. And frankly, it doesn't really matter. It mattered to us when we were managing the budget in the context of the town center. That was really important. This year, it's not so important because, we see that we have some surplus or unallocated general fund amount that we've just discussed. But we don't have, we don't have the town center in front of us where it's getting behind us. So I guess I'm comfortable with it. I just wanted to ask about how we picked that number.
So
City manager.
it's actually based on Robert's interaction at the county level. They have been engaged in a kind of a legal argument going on with the state in terms of basic aid school districts versus those that are not. And so our typical ERAF amount is somewhere between 1.1 and 1.3. The $1.8 million number is an anomaly. So the county is suggesting that agencies budget no more than 90% because they're going to withhold and retain a portion of the excess ERAF as that argument at the state level makes its way forward. So we could get additional reimbursement in a future year to recoup our additional costs once they release that retention. But the 1.1 was a valid number to put in there.
I just have a comment about ERAF. We have some numbers in here at how much it's grown over a period of time, but we don't go back to 2008 when I was first running for council. And at that time, ERAF was almost 900,000. And so it has more than doubled. And that's a testament of the growth of property values in San Mateo County completely. And obviously Atherton, for sure, it has exponentially grown. And so, for it to be 1.8 this last time, it was staggering. And, it's only a matter of time that the state's going to take it. And even back then, people, the state was going to take it away. State was going to take it away.
They were going to take it away. And that's a very good point. And another point that's when the town turned a corner in 11-12, the council made some very intelligent decisions with reductions in staffing and otherwise. But we also, at around that same time, took ERAF out of our operational revenues and put it below the line. So we are no longer dependent upon ERAF for our basic operations.
Yeah.
But
So-
that doesn't
Yeah,
mean
and-
we need time to report it.
Correct. Well, and if I may add, I think over the years too, in conversations with the county, in my predecessors all in San Mateo County, my counterparts actually, there was talk eventually it's going to go away. So their idea was like, if use ERAF as one-time capital projects for things that you see for one-time use, because eventually this is probably going to go away. And there's only 3 or I think 4 counties now that have excess ERAF in the whole state, and they're all in the Bay Area. San Mateo, Marin, Napa, and I think there's one more. I think it might be San Francisco. But out of the whole state, there's only 4 counties that have the excess ERAF. So just a testament that, and just seeing what's happening right now with the state, that they're eyeing it more, looking at it more, and they can always change, the whole school funding formula and all of that. So the whole sentiment was always treated as one-time revenue. And we did that. I believe we began back in 2015 when we started to move it below the line. But Mayor's correct. Back in, I believe at one point it was at 900,000. I think one year was at 700,000 for ERAF.
Mm-hmm.
It's grown, but I think, if we're conservative with it, and then just, if it comes in higher, then that can be that portion that we can apply to this sinking fund for the debt service, or other opportunities or ideas or priorities that the council sees as we understand what comes in for ERAF. We should have a better understanding come summertime with that, how it will look. But with the county talking to the controller, 1.1 million seems to be a safe and valid number for us.
It's very conservative.
Mhm.
Any other comments about this item? Okay, seeing none, we can go on to item number 5, which is the last item on our agenda, and it is a colleague's memo. It was fun to see a colleague's memo being used. It was it's been a long time, so I just want to make it really clear that the colleagues memo, as it's presented to us, is not meant for discussion or discussion about this item or topic. It's only to take a vote on whether or not we want to come back to discuss it at a future agenda time, and maybe have PCE come and make a presentation to us to, I guess they've refined their approach and give us new information, which maybe we didn't get before, and just have an agendized topic. So that's what we have in front of us. And city managers, Rick, would you like to make a comment about this? Because you wrote the agenda, the colleagues memo.
Yeah, well, sitting on the board of PCE, I am very close to the issue because it's regularly reported. There's 11 cities in the county that have changed their codes and adopted REACH codes, and there are 7 other cities in the county that are still in the process of reviewing it, and no one has adopted 100% of the REACH codes that were proposed. So it gets very individualized, and the PCE staff have learned an enormous amount over this past year and a half during which this has been discussed. And I think that it would be in our interest and our residents' interest to hear what they have to say and to look at the issue.
Okay, all right. So based on that,
Madam
you
Mayor.
have a question?
Yes, I do, because, and I asked George if we're allowed to ask questions for clarification on what's written here, and he indicated yes.
Okay.
So it said it changed, it's been modified and things like that. Can you just give a little bit of detail on that, Rick? because I remember when we looked at it, but you know, your write-up seems to indicate that it's been changed, you know, that to
It says-
something that might,
Councilmember Widmer, it said they've greatly refined their approach.
well, it also says modified in there, but it says that the REACH code,
Well-
adopting REACH codes, there are some modified version of those. So if you just could
No,
get,
it is along the lines of what I just mentioned, which is in the course of interacting, particularly with the building and planning departments, which PCE's programs group has now done for quite some time. You know, when they started, they had one template that they were pushing that they identified as, quote, the REACH code solution, unquote. But from their interactions, they've greatly modified that to very much address the issues that were important to each of those different jurisdictions and the resulting REACH codes that were adopted by each of the 11 different cities that have adopted them. None of them are the same. So it's much more individualized and focused on the jurisdiction than it had been when it was initially presented to us.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Any other council member like to weigh in on this at this point?
I do have a question, Madam Mayor. It simply has to do with the fact that Diana's not here. I mean, she signed that. Is this something we should wait for her to get her input on? Would be my question.
Understand. And, you know, it is unfortunate. I guess we could assume that since she signed the colleagues memo, she would be in favor of it. But I don't think that works in our rule of law of, you know, we do need a majority of the council to approve that we will put this on a future agenda such that we will hear more and we will be able to evaluate and then decide at that time whether or not we want to proceed, do part, half, none, whatever. And we're not making the decision today to accept REACH codes by agreeing to put it on a future agenda.
Right. Yeah, what I would think would happen is that we would put it on the next meeting agenda and let PC present to us, and then we can decide if we want to explore it. It doesn't mean we have to adopt anything.
Mhm.
If we choose to explore it, then it'll be a longer process and they will pay us $10,000, whether we don't have to adopt them. But if we choose to look at it, then after their presentation, I think is probably the way it works, then they contribute $10,000 to each jurisdiction.
City manager, could you weigh in on that?
And just a note, that $10,000, as far as we know, could be used to pay for consultant costs that the town may incur in analyzing the REACH codes and their implementation, which, as you know, would probably fall under that sustainability coordinator role.
So it's not $10,000 to have a party or something and.
But it will offset that cost for the first year anyway.
So, I mean, that makes sense. Otherwise, I feel like it's a bribe or something, but you know. Anyway.
Well, no, it's not a bribe. It's not like they're getting a benefit from it. They just want, they know there are costs for building and planning departments to look at it. So, and they know that cities are, you know, don't have any fat whatsoever. So it was a small effort by PCE to make it a little bit easier for cities to look at it. That's all.
I'm glad that was clarified.
Yeah, they don't.
Go ahead.
They don't get any benefit from it.
Yeah.
It's just part of their strategy to reduce greenhouse gases in the county.
Okay. Well, Any other discussion about this? I'd like to, I'll make a motion that I believe we should put it on a future agenda item, and I'm in favor of having PCE come back and present to us. Do I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Mayor, with your permission, I'll do a quick roll
Oh.
call.
Okay,
Thank you. Councilmember DeGolia,
Yes.
Councilmember Widmer,
I'm willing to listen to what they have to say, yes.
Vice Mayor Lemprus,
Oh, I'm torn. I feel like we listened to this. If it's the will of the council to hear it again, so I'll say yes, I'm willing to hear it again. Yes.
thank you, sir, and Mayor Lewis.
I see that we have Councilwoman Hawkins Manuelian connecting to audio.
We do.
So maybe we could give her an opportunity to vote.
Oh, good.
Diana, can you hear us? We are taking the vote on the colleagues' memo to agendize the reach code discussion. And Councilmember DeGolia has voted yes, Councilmember Widmer has agreed, and Vice Mayor Lemprus has just agreed. And then you came on. So if you'd unmute your microphone, you can vote on this.
I'm so sorry. I just connected audio. I just heard you. Are you talking to me?
Yes, I am. So we're taking a vote. You're the next council person to cast your vote in favor or against putting the discussion about reach code on a future agenda. So,
I would vote in favor of putting the reach codes on our agenda.
okay, thank you. Okay, and then I'm the last one to Council Vice Mayor Lemprus. Did you want to say something?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just listening in.
Okay, all right. And so I'll cast my vote as the 5th council member, and I will also vote in favor of it. And so city manager would like to say something. You don't get a vote, George.
But absent specific direction from the council, this would show up on the April 21st agenda as a presentation from PCE.
If PCE can work that fast to do that.
Yeah, they're prepared for that.
Okay, that's fine with me. Well, thank you all. And thank you for a good meeting. And Councilmember Hawkins Manuelian, thank you for logging on. And I hope that everything goes well for you. And I'm glad you were able to cast your vote for your colleague's memo.
Thank you so much. I really apologize to everyone. This will not be the next
It's okay.
strange circumstances.
Understand. There's
No problem.
no apologies necessary. Understand. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. That's fine. You know, I'm sorry that we didn't get to hear from Public Works Director Abadia today. Did you not have a PowerPoint presentation?
I'll save it for you next time if you really want
Okay.
it. But Robert did a fantastic job putting his together, so.
All right.
All right. Bye all. Bye all. See you
Okay.
later.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Goodbye. Thank you all.